Hello everybody and welcome to the summer lecture on William Shakespeare. Now for William Shakespeare we're only going to look at one of his sonnets. William Shakespeare of course is most well known for the plays that he wrote, particularly during the English Renaissance, during the reigns of, towards the end of the reign of Queen Elizabeth I and right at the beginning of the reign of King James I. But he also wrote sonnets. Now Shakespeare himself did not make any money off of these sonnets. He actually wrote them for fun, and he shared them with his friends, and he'd distribute copies out to everybody. And because William Shakespeare was already a celebrity by the time that these sonnets were published, which was somewhere around 1609, the person that gathered all of his sonnets together and put them in a volume and published them and sold them got all of the money. William Shakespeare didn't get any of it. We got to remember, back in the late 1500s, early 1600s, there were still no copyright laws yet, and there were no anti-piracy laws. So this person that actually made this money off of Shakespeare's sonnets was well within the law to do so. And there's no knowledge to or I don't know of any evidence of whether Shakespeare is upset about this or happy for his friend or whatever. But still, that person made all the money. But the good news for you and me is that these sonnets now survive because of that guy that pirated these poems and made a profit off of them. So that's the bright side to that equation. All right, so let's talk about Sonnet 130. But before we do, by the way, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and open up the PowerPoint slideshow that's in the Poetry Essay module of D2L. The William Shakespeare portion of that slideshow starts around slide 18. So go ahead and open that up, and on slide 18 you'll see a picture of William Shakespeare. And I'll pause for a minute while you do that. Alright, so before we actually look at Sonnet 130, My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun, let's take a look at what a Shakespearean sonnet is. So we'll go on to slide number 19 here. The sonnet is a 14-line poem, and the way these 14-line poems are split up is they are designed so that they have 3 quatrains followed by a couplet. So a quatrain is 4 lines. So, and you can look at the rhyme scheme down there on the 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet point down. So you can see that the rhyme scheme for the first quatrain is A, B, A, B. And if we look at the first quatrain of My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun, by the way, in this textbook here, in the textbook that was assigned to the class, this poem appears on page 466. So if you need to turn to page 466 or you need to pull up your copy of Sonnet 130, I will go ahead and pause for a second and let you do that. Okay, so I'm assuming you've hit the play button now since you can hear my voice. Let's take a look at page 466 at the very bottom of our book. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. Notice that lines 1 and 3, sun and dun, rhyme with each other. And lines 2 and 4, red and head, rhyme with each other. So, you've got that rhyme scheme going on there, and it follows that rhyme scheme all throughout. Notice the final couplet is GG. So, the final couplet, the last 2 rhymes rhyme with each other. What we're going to see with every sonnet, but particularly the one that we're studying here, Sonnet 130, that last couplet shows a change of some sort. So it might flip the rest of the poem on its head. And we're going to study that in great detail in a moment. Okay. And then the Spenserian sonnet is different from the Shakespearean sonnet because of its rhyme scheme. And then there are other sonnets as well, like the Petrarchan sonnet and a couple of other sonnets as well. But Shakespeare's sonnets had the rhyme scheme that is shown on your slide there. All right. So let's take a look at this particular sonnet. All right, now, if any of you ladies read this poem before you saw this lecture, you may have gotten a little upset at William Shakespeare. Please do not do so. I want to make this clear right now. In fact, go ahead and minimize your slideshow and look me right in the eye as I tell you this. William Shakespeare was not making fun of any woman at all. He was not making fun of his wife. By the way, his wife's name was Anne Hathaway, and she did give him 3 children. He was not making fun of some girlfriend or some mistress. he was not making fun of any woman whatsoever. He was making fun of somebody, though. And the people that he was making fun of were these poets that actually write about these incredible women that cannot possibly exist in reality. So, these women whose farts smell like peppermint and who, their skin is so perfect that it's almost like porcelain, and, moonbeams shine out of their eyes and their laughter is like music. These are the kinds of women that some poets, particularly an Italian poet by the name of Petrarch. In fact, you might want to Google Petrarch and see what he was like and see what his poems are like. This is who William Shakespeare is making fun of. He's saying, hey, I have a girlfriend, and I have a real girlfriend. You, sir, are making women up out of thin air that can't possibly exist. So who's the lucky one now, right? I can have a real girl, and you can just dream about these imaginary women that can't possibly exist. That, ladies and gentlemen, is who William Shakespeare is making fun of in Sonnet 130. All right, so let's pull the slideshow back up. Now that we have established that, let's take a look at at these first 12 lines. All right, so my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. So if we're thinking about Petrarch, what might his ideal woman, her eyes look like? Well, if William Shakespeare's narrators, and remember, you've always got to separate the narrator from an author in these poems. We talked about that in the intro. If the eyes are nothing like the sun, then maybe Petrarch's women's eyes glow in the dark. Maybe they shoot out sunbeams whenever they look around. So it's possible that that's the kind of woman that Petrarch is writing about. Line 2. Coral is far more red than her lips red. So, ladies, why do you wear red lipstick? Think about that for a moment. Now, most ladies these days don't really wear red lipstick. I know that you wear other colors, but the fact is you dress up your lips so that they are not a natural skin color, right? You actually dress them up to whatever color you think is going to attract your boyfriend, your husband, or if you're single, the guy that you want to attract. In Petrarch's world, these women have bright red lips and don't need lipstick. But the mistress of the narrator in 130 has normal colored lips like any other woman. All right. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. Folks, let me explain here that the ideal woman back in Shakespeare's time, particularly in the upper classes, were women that were solid white. And the reason for that is that if a woman had darker skin, it meant that she probably worked outdoors, or that she was a poor woman, that she came from a lower social class and actually had to work for a living. So women during this time, and really on up until about the early 20th century, white was considered very, very attractive because these women were rich, because these women sat indoors all the time where they couldn't get a suntan. They would even wear long sleeves and carry parasols in the middle of the summer to keep their skin from browning up. So the ideal woman in Petrarch's mind has snow white skin. But, as you can see, dun, which is kind of a dull color, is the mistress here. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. And we can go through this line by line. And as you go through this line by line, think about, okay, if hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. So if the black wires grow on our narrator's mistress's head, then Petrarch's woman might actually have soft hair, snowy hair, almost like a cloud you could get lost in. And keep going on down. We've got the cheeks, we've got the breath, we've got the fact that our mistress in the narrator's mistress in 130 actually sounds like a person when she speaks instead of having musical quality to her voice. And then, of course, we finish these first 12 lines, the end of the first 12 lines. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. So, while Petrarch may have fantasized about goddesses that float on clouds or float in the air and don't leave footprints, our human girlfriend in Sonnet 130 actually leaves footprints on the ground when she walks by. When she walks through the house, if you've got hardwood floors, which may or may not have been the case back in those days, but when she walks on the hardwood floors, you hear thunk, 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 thunk thunk as she walks through the house. So that is the mistress in Sonnet 130. But now, those are the first 12 lines. Remember, I said the last 2 lines, that final couplet, turns the sonnet on its head. So let's take a look at these last 2 lines. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare. What do you think Shakespeare means by rare here? Think about this for a minute. Rare means uncommon. He's saying, I think I love my woman more than, well, let's take a look at the last line and find out. As any she belied with false compare. So, in other words, he's saying, yeah, by heaven, or by God, if you want to think of it that way, I think that I love my real flesh and blood woman with her bad breath and her heavy footsteps. I love her more than any woman is loved that is belied with false compare. In other words, any imaginary woman. Any woman that is compared to things that women cannot possibly be compared to. That is the point of this poem. Shakespeare is making fun of these guys that have these imaginary girlfriends and write these fantastic poems about them. Yet in real life, he can get a real woman, and with all her faults, he's more in love with her than these other guys are with these imaginary women. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is Sonnet 130. Notice how the first 12 lines build up one expectation. Those last 2 lines, bam, they turn it on its head. So you would think that the narrator here might be unhappy with this woman in those first 12 lines, but in those last 2, yeah, he loves this woman more than Petrarch loves his fairy tales. So that's it. That's Sonnet 130. So I hope that this has helped clear things up. If any of you women were a little bit offended, I hope you no longer are. I hope you now realize that Shakespeare actually was making fun of somebody, but it wasn't a flesh and blood woman, and it wasn't his wife or his girlfriend or anything like that. And he certainly was not making fun of you. I have had students in the past write papers about how Shakespeare better not be writing about me like that, to which I'm saying, Shakespeare died 400 years ago. He doesn't even know you exist, okay? So get over yourself. So if that's the way you read this poem, well, get over yourself. All right, so that's it. That's William Shakespeare's Sonnet 130.